You are listening to the Atlanta Real Estate Forum radio show, all about real estate edition, shining a light on the movers and shakers in the real estate industry, the home builders, developers, realtors, and suppliers making it all happen.
Good morning and welcome back to Atlanta Real Estate Forum Radio's All About Real Estate edition. I'm your host, Carol Morgan, and I'd like to give a special thanks to our 2022 show sponsor, New American Funding. It is thanks to them that this show is possible. Today, we're continuing our Legends of Real Estate series with another icon of the industry. I am very happy to welcome Terry Morris, president of Morris & Fellows Real Estate, to the studio today. Welcome, Terry.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Actually, my wife is president of Morris & Fellows, so I'm going to give her credit for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, I have the wrong title.
I help as I can with her core business, which we can talk about later. I was also a little off put when the concept of icon and legendary showed up. Which took me another 30 days to finally get here because I don't see myself in that light at all.
Well,
likes to do what they do.
Yeah, well, you're good at what you do. Talk a little bit about how you got into the real estate business.
Well, we left Florida State University, got out in 1970, and I jumped right into the first job I could find, which was retail management, and I did that for a number of years. At which point, I kind of did the analysis on it. I loved my work. I've loved every job that I've ever had, I think, and but I couldn't make the level of income. At least I couldn't see it. So I started looking around, and a friend suggested I consider commercial mortgage banking. So I went to work with the Commonwealth Corporation in 1974. Of course, that timing wasn't particularly good because it was the first recession I had the opportunity to work through, and the company ended up with bigger trouble. But while I was there, they asked me to go ahead and get my Florida real estate license. And then on occasion, when they had a backlog and needed help, they also formally trained me to do appraisals. I could, when I wasn't doing a commercial project, I could help them with residential appraisals. They were in that business as well. So we did that until the recession just really shut in the Southeast in particular. 74-5 was pretty brutal. And my wife and I looked around and said, what do we want to do now? We've been in Tallahassee now for 10 years. Let's go take our little family, which at that point was 2 children. We had lost our second child, and we had, I think Colin was 6 months and Kristen was 6 years. And we looked around and put a dot on the map, and it was either Austin or Wichita, Kansas, really had strong economies. So we packed it up and went out. Sherry went to work for Melvin Simon and Associates, opened up a regional mall for them out there, Town East Square. And I went to work for Nestor Wygand, a firm that was founded in residential and commercial in the late 1800s. Not unlike, Harry Norman, but even older than them and more staid, if you will. And that was my beginning. So I got licensed there as a broker, opened an office for them. I eventually took over relocation services, did everything you can possibly do. And back in those days, the broker, we not only listed, sold, we closed the loans in our office, and that was my job.
Wow.
So I'll never forget the day when a buyer showed up on a residential closing transaction with an all-cash closing. And put stacks of $100 bills on my desk.
Wow.
So I couldn't get that closing done quick enough and get to the bank. But we drew up the closing statements. We did everything you would normally see in a closing today. And of course, a few years later, somebody wised up and they took that responsibility away from brokers. And I think, title companies took it over out there.
Yeah, wow.
So we were loving life out in Wichita once we got accustomed to the, extreme weather. But we realized that we were too far from home. We both grew up in the Southeast. I had family all over, in the Florida market, and Sherry did as well. So we pulled the map out again and said, where should we go? And we said, well, Atlanta, Georgia is close enough without being in our relatives' backyards, and it also has opportunity for growth for both of us, which we were kind of, I guess, way ahead of our times. You know, she didn't follow me around. We kind of went together to where we could build our independent careers. And it worked out pretty well. So she joined up with Tom Cousins as vice president of marketing for him. I flew into town in the spring of '78 and met Johnny Isaacson for lunch in a coffee shop up on Johnson's Ferry Road, which was until a few years ago was still there. We liked each other, and I say each other because I kind of was at that point where it was important that it was a two-way street. And that conversation went very, very well. He said, well, I'll tell you what, Terry, when you get your broker's license, come back and see me. So I reported back to Johnny. I said, okay, I got my broker's license. This was in October of '78, I believe it was. And he said, well, I don't have an exact job for you, but I want you to come to work for us. We'll figure something out. So they sent me up to an office in North Sandy Springs. I worked there for 6 or 9 months. And then a situation arose over in Smyrna. He said, I need you to go over to Smyrna and take care of that office for a while. So I did that for a pretty good while. And it was, so, you know, there I was. I'm now in the Atlanta brokerage market. And having a lot of fun on a very steep learning curve. As you can imagine, local customs in real estate vary by state. Laws are different, customs are different. So, you know, I had a chance to really to dig in. And no sooner did I get comfortable when the next recession hit, which was 80, 81, 82. And next thing I know, I'm responsible for a profit center, and interest rates were at 18%. So, but that didn't stop us. We came up with all sorts of creative ways. And in our little office over there, we sold 365. We sold one house a day on average in 1982 at 18% interest rates. So there's, you know, we did the obvious rent versus sell, pros and cons, and a whole bunch of other very creative things to help people get what they wanted. So we were in the problem solving business and got very good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you could probably teach some people a little bit today about how 6% isn't that bad. 6% compared to 18%. Yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah. But, you know, I like those threes a lot better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, talk a little bit about what it was like to work with Johnny Isaacson.
Well, you know, I mentioned how we met, and Johnny always ran the company that was very, very lean in terms of senior management. And we really hit it off. I tended, we had a managers meeting every Monday morning, and I sat in the back of the room and just listened for the longest time and made notes and learned from all the older tenured brokers that had been there for years. And, you know, it's interesting because I had come to the decision, having had some experience in commercial, that this concept of residential brokerage was a bit crazy. The unpredictability of everything didn't make sense to me. I couldn't get my arms around if there was really a business model that had any processes, controls, standards, so forth and so on. And there really wasn't. So I decided I was going to switch back into the commercial real estate. So I'm over in Smyrna working with some very, very talented people, selling a lot of houses. By the way, I had to change the scorecard because when I got here, we were never in the top 5 in production in a multi-office company. And I said, well, this isn't fair because I'm outperforming everybody in terms of units sold. So that was a concept that didn't come up. So I'm competing against our Sandy Springs office that's selling, you know, average sales prices 3 times what
Right.
there. I'm selling $45,000 houses and they're selling $200,000 houses. So I convinced Johnny that we need to rethink how we scored ourselves in the competitive environment among us office managers. And sure enough, it made sense to him, and we did it. So then I started getting on top of the charts. We actually set up a volume and a unit, and I was happy as long as we could be acknowledged for good work, because the work level is the same whether it's a $40,000 house or a $400,000 house.
Right.
And because we were so busy and so lean. Oh, well, but what happened is somewhere around 1984, Johnny and David, so to say, back when I was running a branch office, I just did my job. I had been well-trained, extraordinarily well-trained and mentored in Wichita, Kansas by a gentleman, Nestor Wygand's uncle, Gene Paul. And I was on the phone all the time to him, asking about getting his wisdom on problems and situations. And it was just a wealth of information. So when I got to town, I just, knew what I needed to do and went and did it. So in around 84 or so, Johnny and David Shaddam, who was the majority, their company, their family owned the majority owners of Northside Realty, asked if I would consider coming over to the corporate office and working as the general manager. And I thought, I didn't have to think about that very long. But what it did for me was that I said to myself, well, this means I have an opportunity to play with the model, to change the model, to do some of the things that I mentally had been complaining about, but knew that I couldn't do anything about, to the point that I was just going to go do something else. So there, around 1985, I guess I was formally, I'm guessing on that date, it was close to that. And Johnny and I shared one end of the Northside Tower, CNS Bank building office, and then later Northside Tower, common receptionist. So we were right next to each other day in, day out. But we didn't spend a lot of time talking to each other because there was no extra time to talk, believe it or not. We were just that busy. The company was doing probably 800-900 million in residential sales at the time. When I moved to town in 78, population was around 500,000. Atlanta was getting ready to enter its a remarkable growth of, over 100,000 people a year coming into the market for the next 20 years. So the opportunity was there, but it took a lot of skill to figure out how to tap that in a disciplined fashion, instead of just sort of doing things the way they were always done in real estate, which was pretty much the same among all companies. You hired good brokers and you hired agents. You hope they went to work and, sold houses, and it all seemed to work out for a long time. But things were changing, and I had the view that change was fundamental, and you could either get ahead of it and be the change maker, or you could follow. And I was comfortable with the change process. My degree in college was, and I only did it because I didn't know what else to do. It was kind of fun. Psychology and management. The management was the boring part because they were mostly boring people in the School of Business, but the psychology students were just off the wall interesting. Those skills later people refer to me as the numbers guy in the company, and John, relative to Johnny's position, and I use numbers as a means to an end. They served me well throughout my career. And then the way Johnny and I worked is, I actually asked him, I said, Johnny, I'd like to suggest to you what I'd like to accomplish each year. And this is what these were my major goals. So we'd sit down and I'd go over that. And I don't think he ever said, no, don't do that, do this. And I took on new homes the first big year. We were, on any given day, we were probably responsible for the sales and marketing of 200 to 250 subdivisions. And so when one was sold out, we were bringing another one in. And it was, they were small projects to the Polo Golf and Country Club, which was owned by our parent. I was the person who came in and said, we need to treat our parent like an arm's length client. And and give them the same level of discipline, brokerage services, accountabilities, and all the rest of the stuff, trained agents and everything. And so that was an interesting conversation with David and Howard Chatham at one point, especially when they were used to tapping our pocketbooks to pay for marketing and things of that nature. And I says, no, it's all your money anyway. You can have it all, but we need to count it over here, and then
Right.
and then you spend your money over there, and you can recover it from us later.
Yeah.
So it was a business approach versus a good old boy, family approach to how businesses were often run. So,
well,
so
Northside.
Johnny, I enjoyed, Johnny was one of the, I've seen him in so many environments, so many presentations, so many different types of groups of people, and he was brilliant. I've never seen anybody work a room like Johnny in my life. And so I took advantage of the time that we worked together to just watch and listen. Even though I was, went from being general manager to executive vice president, and my responsibilities got kicked up, every day was a day of learning. And so I learned a lot from Johnny. And later on, when he moved on to his political ambitions, he would periodically, because he was still a minority owner of the company, people would whisper in his ear, "What do you see here? What Morris is doing now?" He would he'd say, "Hey, tell me what's going on." And I would lay out the program that I wanted to do. One of them, which was really challenging for our management team, was to make a buyer agency mandatory in our company. So every buyer in the company knew that we were working for them. We had a document agreement we had to sign. It took a year to get full implementation, but after people were trained and understood and saw how it worked, our agents just appreciated the opportunity, the transparency in the transaction, and to not be taken advantage of, frankly.
Right. Well, Northside Realty was widely successful. What do you attribute that success to?
Dedicated and capable management at multiple levels. Clearly, that was Johnny established, a really remarkable foundation. And then I was later allowed to build upon that, and was proud to have been able to grow the company from, $1 billion to $2.2 billion in residential sales when I left the company in the early part of 2002. And we changed the model, but we can maybe talk about that in a little bit. But we had our head of relocation services was a remarkable leader. Our head of rental properties, each division, I had one of the most talented IT guys probably in the United States. He later followed me to GMAC Real Estate nationally, Michael Williams. And in 1995, we started working together on the internet and how to utilize the internet as a tool to assist our agents in doing what they do so well. And also to acquire more customers and help our clients shop more intelligently and more efficiently, and so forth and so on. So that was a game changer, and in terms of 95 forward. But ultimately, a company is only as good as the leadership is able to is provided in the organization, and that leadership has to take place at multiple levels. But the standard is set at the top, and Johnny did that so well for so many years, and then he turned it over to me to do, and I'd like to think I did a reasonably good job of taking it to the next level.
Well, I think seeing that vision and embracing it and embracing change has been a huge part of your success. And I know you've seen a lot of changes during your career. Talk a little bit about some of those. There's been changes in the brokerage business. There's been changes to agent compensation. And then, all these mergers and acquisitions that just seem to continue. Speak a little bit to each of those.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Changes in the brokerage business. And because I have recently been involved in some real estate transactions, we've purchased a property in in Midtown, and I still do referrals that are, sent to handpicked agents. And so I'm able to see how the transaction works. In a lot of ways, nothing has changed. The residential brokerage business, due to the nature of the transaction volume, meaning the person who buys a house today might never buy another one, or they might buy one in 10 years. And so at the beginning and the end of the day, the relationship between the individual agent, their competency, their ethics become critical to the outcome of that transaction. We actually, back at Northside Realty, attempted to change that model. That's probably the thing that I'm most proud of, is that we effectively did it. We created a partnership with our agents. We felt like, and we had the same pressure everybody did as RE/MAX and other 100%, if you will, but there's really no such thing as a 100% company. Whether you get 100% of the commission, but pay fees for your overhead and your desk and different technology services that are charged out. There is a cost to be associated with a broker, and the better the tools, the higher that cost is going to be. We were very interested in creating predictable processes and outcomes. And one of the things that I did for most of my career as the CEO of the company was, as soon as our what we called executive associates, and that was frankly an honor title because of who they were and how good they were at what they did. Back in the day when $75,000 was probably a lot more money, as soon as an agent hit $75,000 in income, my assistant would set up a private lunch with 10 to 12 of these people. And those lunches, by the way, started as early as late January and February, because they have a book of business that's coming in and business is closing. So throughout the year, I am meeting with 175 of our very top producers, some who were new to the business, but mostly have been around for a long time. By the way, over time, as our systems came into place, newly hired people fell into that category rather quickly. I'll talk about that if there's time. But one of the questions I always asked them was, what are your biggest challenges today? Inevitably, year after year, they said it was the challenges of dealing with a cooperating broker in a transaction. They simply weren't doing their jobs. Yeah. And there was an expectation, if they were on the buy side and we were on the listing side, they had things that needed to be done and they weren't getting done. So it shocked me that with the growth of the industry and technology and all the other things that were coming along, the delivery system hadn't really changed. So one of the things that we did is we created we worked with our management team on how to hire the right people. Simple concept. A lot of other industries have done it for years. So we came up with a profile and we did a lot of work on that. And then how do you train those people to succeed? And then how do you help and how do you hold them accountable for their success? And so we set up we developed a coaching program. So which became a really big thing, sometime after I left the brokerage business here in Atlanta. So every agent at a certain point in this development and growth in the 90s started out, we thought they were going to succeed because of their background and experience and the desire. And what wasn't a qualified why you're getting in this business was, I like people. That was the typical answer you'd get. Oh, I like people. Well, so what? That's a good thing if you do like people, because you're going to have to be dealing with them regularly. But there's other motivations that really should be prior to that. But everybody ended up with our agents. We sat down with them, and depending on what their needs were, we helped them build a business plan. And then we trained them and coached them, and we set up a one-on-one. Our managers had a one-on-one coaching program, and depending on who the agent was, we would even do accountability where they told us what they said they were intended to do to succeed in the business, how many listens they wanted to take, how many, so forth and so on. And then we would meet with them on an every 2-week basis and say, well, how'd it go the last 2 weeks? Well, I didn't do such and such that I was supposed to do. I gotta get back on that. And I was doing the same thing with the management team in terms of their responsibilities to grow their office. And sometimes managers would laugh when I'd call them up, because I talked to my management team back in the day every 2 weeks for 1 hour about their business. This is unheard of in the industry. And they would laugh sometimes, and they'd say, Terry, I did everything I told you I was going to do 2 weeks ago, and I did it yesterday. And they would lean back and belly laugh, and they say, you know what? It's so easy to get caught up in the urgent but not important.
Right.
And I knew I was going to be talking to you, and it was going to be embarrassing to say I didn't do anything, because I let all this other stuff, all these firefights, distract me from my real job.
Right.
So it was a game changer. And so at the end of the day, what we were after was a world-class brokerage experience at the customer level. And part of this model change was to go from single brokerage to adding, because what was happening also to our industry is that the company dollar was getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it was difficult to provide the level of services that we historically had done to support our agents. I lost my. This is what I do in front of 1,000. Used to do in front of 1,000. Somebody would tell me where I was.
Tell you where you were. Well, you were talking about accountability and agents.
Oh yeah, and the changing the model. Thank you.
Yeah.
We were a leader in the industry, not only in the Atlanta region, but as it turns out, in the United States. And I
absolutely,
because I had the opportunity and the pleasure to be in national organizations where similarly like-minded companies, typically the largest regional players in all these markets around the United States, would get together every 2 months and bare our souls, if you will. And I was as interested in what they tried to do and it didn't work as what didn't. I also found within a few minutes, by the morning session of the first day, I knew who I wanted to have lunch with. And I would pick their brains for lunch and come back with lots of ideas that I didn't implement, by the way, at least not immediately, because the last thing you want when you're the CEO is to say, oh God, Morris has been out of town again. He's got another idea. So sometimes my ideas, I would bake for 2 years, minimum, sometimes a year, before we would roll them out, and they were done in a very disciplined fashion. But this changing of the model was critical, because I was really, from my initial disappointment in residential brokerage to where I had the opportunity to make a difference, and I was passionate about doing that. We had insurance, but we weren't really using our own insurance company. It was a sister company. And we added mortgage. We added transaction closing services. I partnered with Seth Wiseman, and we developed a closing program, and we rewrote together what a perfect closing would look like, so that when it was all said and done, because I went to many hundreds of closings over the years, and they weren't all great experiences. We added concierge services, utility connections, select, referred movers, just on and on and on. And we wanted to have that relationship for life. So when that transaction closed, they said, yes, this felt good. And of course, your big pushback was from your agents, because they said, oh my God, if this is a company on service, a company on mortgage company, and we have a problem, we're in trouble. My response to that was, who does it reflect on now? Because those of you who are at the best of what you do, your clients are saying to you, what company should I go to? And you typically give them a name or two and sometimes 3. But when it's all said and done, if it doesn't go well, are they mad at the mortgage company or are they mad at you?
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, we're the ones who take the brunt of it. I
Yeah.
said, the difference is if it's ours, we will have human error. It will inevitably take place, but we will also have world-class recovery services, and we can make it right because it's ours and because it matters so much to us. And that worked. And we had some of the highest conversion ratios on buyer control sides anywhere in the United States. And we were rapidly building them when the company was sold to Ascendant back in 2002. So yeah, it was a great time. But like every other job I had, once that job was over, I closed the door and moved on.
We'll talk about that. So talk about the transition from Northside Realty to going into business with your wife and starting Morrison Fellows, and what did all of that look like?
Well, Morrison Fellows had actually been around since 1982, so she's now
Okay.
got 2 decades of doing retail-based mixed-use commercial real estate all over the United States and parts of the world. I actually joined up with her in early 2002, and no sooner did I get involved in some projects than a friend tapped me on the shoulder. Actually, I was at a national meeting, and he said, "Can I have breakfast with you?" And I said, "Sure. I'll see you tomorrow morning." And he said, "I'd like you to come run our company-owned operations for GMAC Real Estate."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Well, that's very interesting." And so I spent 6 months working with John at that time until I really understood who they were and what they were. And went to, I know it sounds anal, but I flew around the country and watched them work. So I knew what I was getting into, and I told John, I said, I'm on. I'll give you, I think we can do what you want to accomplish in 5 years. And I ended up staying 6. And we ended up doing we grew to be the 4th largest residential brokerage company in America based on volume. We were in Boston, Greater Boston, Greater Chicago, all parts of San Francisco, Marin, Sonoma, Napa Valley, Cape Cod, just on and on. But these were really, really great companies that, under the ownership, because they'd been purchased, that was going on in a phase of our industry, that the people who built these remarkable companies, in many cases, wanted to retire, cash out, and almost all of them stayed on for a tour of duty, which was a requirement. But operating in a corporate world where all focus is on quarterly returns, levels of bureaucracy that you can't imagine. We talk about the government. It happens in for-profit companies exactly the same. It's a human condition. It's not a government or otherwise condition. And so we worked really hard, and we changed the model. We added brokerage. We added all the other services. We increased our multiple profit centers, increased our profits, and built all those companies up. Only in 2008, GMAC was purchased by a hedge fund, and they now were majority owner, and they were doing what hedge funds do. They were trying to figure out how they could cut overhead everywhere they could, which in the process, they usually run off the talent. They do get the overhead cut quickly, and then they sell it, and they make a lot of money for their investors. So we were chopped up and sold off to a variety of friends and people in the industry. And I retired at that point. Finally, remember, I started to.
You've been trying to do that for a while, huh?
Jerry and I have been working together. So the big transition took place then, not in 2002 when we got started working together, with me just to provide support to what she already did so well. and learn more. We're 53 years married, so we've been in and out a whole lot of stuff. But I have to tell you, when we started working together on Woodstock downtown, the Great Recession had hit. I mean, golly, I had been honored to speak to Chairman Bernanke and four Fed governors on 1-on-5 basis and give them my opinion, and asked them. Then they let me ask them a lot of questions. Because of the respect that we had in the industry, they were looking for real time. What do you see going on? And I asked them a lot of questions afterwards about, are you concerned about the fact that I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're the largest housing market in the United States, and I can give you a list of home builders longer than this table, which was pretty long.
Right.
Not sold a home to other than a subprime buyer in almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Are you not concerned? Anyway, that's kind of conversation. They really didn't understand, and we're clueless. And of course, the sky fell. We lost our partners in Sherry. They're close friends, and we travel together, and they're doing amazing things. Pam Sessions and Don Donnelly, Hedgewick Properties. They were our partners on the residential portion of Alpharetta City Center. Fabulous product up there. But Sherry and I were fortunate enough. Things went well at GMAC. Nice thing about big companies like that is that when you have a plan, they pay whatever the plan says you earned, with no questions asked. It's not like a mom and pop where, I'll change my mind. And so we had the capital to go ahead and complete Woodstock commercial on our own. And so we did that and did everything we did out there to hold for the long haul. And we sold it in March 31st of this year to a really fine company that we think is going to be do what needs to be done by the community. We're also working on Woodstock City Center.
I saw that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
That's going to be it's the next and final. Well, it's not the final. There's one other possibility. First of all, Woodstock is one of the most remarkable cities that my wife has had the opportunity to work with, and in particular, their leadership team and their city manager. We're going to be we have a public partnership, private partnership with the city of Woodstock. We're the lead team. Pretty much what you saw as an example in Alpharetta City Center, if you've been up there, comes out of my wife's head in collaboration with a team of other very smart people, but she's the driver. Same thing on this. We will have 600. We badly need parking because the city is so successful. 667 structured parking.
Oh, excellent.
Right on this 4.5 acres of ground at Main and Main, Arnold Mill and East Main Street. Those will be hidden because that's the way my wife does stuff, where she's not going to look at ugly. And we will also have, in addition to that, more restaurants, retail. The city badly wants a boutique hotel. We've been working on that, and right now it's looking like 120 key boutique hotel, which there is nothing like it in that part of the world. We'll have some office. There is no office in that part of the world. You got to go all the way back down several miles south to get to an office building of any sort. So so that's well underway. Right now, you've seen announcements that have been made and so forth and so on. To my surprise, because we're trying to get where we spend more time doing fun stuff, but this really is fun for her. She's put together another RFQ, request for qualification, on another similar neat potential city to create another place. Her objective is to frankly demonstrate to the world that that commercial real estate can enhance the world and the community. But I tell you, they're hard to do. They're not necessarily formulaic. It's not a math problem. Once the math problem's solved, you just turn it over to the other people to build it, and sell it as quick as you can to a pension fund and exit town. So so that's sort of where we are, right now.
Well, you've done a ton over the years. Probably not a fair question, but what's been the most rewarding thing that you've done, most rewarding part of your career?
Well, I frankly, given that I made a decision to be in residential real estate and then made a decision to get out of it and then was given an opportunity to change it.
Right.
And we've succeeded in that change. Yeah, is growth in revenue, sales, revenue, net income, all of that stuff is really important. It becomes a byproduct of doing all the other stuff correctly. And, and I've had the pleasure of working with some really remarkably talented real estate agents over the years. I use an agent anytime I buy or sell. I believe in the business, and I've rarely been disappointed. So that's probably the thing that I'm most proud of. I don't know that it matters at this point because the world keeps changing. It's changing rapidly, new technologies. I was part of the conversation where what we call them were interlopers. They join these technology companies, join our multiple listing service. The independent brokers have done all the heavy lifting. They've recruited the agents, they paid the overhead, they've listed the properties, they've created the technology platform, and then all of a sudden we're, giving it away.
Right.
And those same people are selling leads back to us and that sort of thing. But who knows where the next evolution in this is. But unless the nature of transactions change, that will be an infrequent buy and sell opportunity for most consumers. And it's a pretty big deal for most people, myself included, as much stuff as we've done. And so the role of that third party, because humans, I fundamentally believe that, if they could talk to each other, buyers and sellers, and just make a deal, the industry wouldn't exist. But that doesn't happen very easily, or it's rare. It does happen, but it's rare. So there's always going to be a need for that third party to bring the parties together, to be clear about the process, to make sure it's all properly done, and the buyer gets what they think they're getting, and the sellers get what they're getting, and there's the least amount of pain possible in a very complicated process.
Right. Absolutely. Well, for someone who's thinking about getting into the brokerage industry today, what advice do you have for them?
Given all the stuff we talked about, I would interview 2 or 3 different companies. Number one, what you're going to get by doing that, and your favorite friend who's maybe encouraged you to get in the business or is recruiting you to a certain company is going to tell you all the reasons why you ought to go to work for them.
Right.
This is an opportunity to as a matter of fact, to relate to that story. When Johnny said I had the job, I said, Johnny, before I take the job, I want to go call on all of your major competitors and interview them and see if they're interested in talking to me. And if they are, talk about their business and so forth and so on. I had an opportunity to learn about all of our major competitors from the CEO at the CEO level, given what I was interviewing for, and learn things that I would have never learned if I had not taken the time to do that. And then so I come back to Johnny, I says, okay, I've completed my interviews. I'm ready to go to work. This sounds awfully strange that somebody would actually do that. But it really gave me an advantage when I went to work for the company that I was going to be with for 23 years. So I would suggest that an agent does that as well. Look for how you're going to be supported. A license in real estate in any state in the union is nothing more than an access license. It gives you the ability to get into that industry and go to work. You are not qualified for fundamentally anything at that point. You've learned some technical jargon. You've learned, whatever the license things are. And so look at the training program. And when the training program's done, is it a 6-week program that's your bump, or is there continuing education being offered by your company and so forth? And is there somebody in that organization that's going to help, who you're going to get up and feel like, which was my job always, was to help everyone succeed, help my department heads succeed in what they were doing, my branch managers, my division presidents in case of GMAC. There needs to be an organization that has that focus, and a lot of them, frankly, are transactional. And if that's what you want, that fits your personality, fine. You pay your fee, you get your license, you go out and knock on doors or whatever it is, sell a house, list a house from a friend or a relative. But that's not what I call a career. That's
a job, not a career.
Yeah. And it can be a very rewarding career, because when agents do their work well, it is so important and so appreciated by the people on both sides of the transaction. And I see the same thing in commercial. Whether it's, I can't tell you how many commercial leases I've read now. My wife knows who she wants in what spaces, literally, to create a relationship where they all help lift each other up. But as many hours in the day as she's got, she couldn't do it all. So I would be assigned to, work in a lot of these leases, 40-page leases, and a lot of detail. It's so very similar. Whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, it's the license is an opportunity to learn. And if you learn well, if you stay on the learning curve, always stay on the learning curve. Never get comfortable, because when you do, you're going to have a problem. And then just and enjoy it. Enjoy the work you do, because it's rewarding.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts about what's going on in the housing industry today, and where do you think we're going from here with all of our, home prices going up and interest rates going up, and everybody's, saying the sky is falling? What's your take on it?
Well, the sky's not really falling. I'm old enough now at 74 to have worked through quite a few of these recessions, and we always come out there on the other end. Yet when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel so good. I was actually hoping you wouldn't ask me that question. For 22 years, I did a quarterly market update for the housing industry, and including actually going to the Federal Reserve Bank one time. And I worked at it. I prepared for those, and I found, as a matter of fact, I entertained myself, because by the time I looked at all the numbers and drew conclusions, I was so bored I couldn't stand it. And so I would do all these that's where I got into tangents. And it turns out my audiences typically like the tangents as well. But the new element that has me scratching my head are these equity funds. And I saw them surface in 2008. Yep. Believe it or not, because nobody much paid attention to what was happening in 2008, because they were all busy surviving. In 2009, that's when they started showing up, buying single-family houses wholesale, with some sort of a business model that I'm sure includes long-term hold if necessary, spend as little as you have to in terms of your cost to carry, isn't a good thing for real estate, and then sell it at some point at a higher price. Well, we're in a position in Atlanta, Georgia, where we have more ownership type buyers, people who want to own their real estate, than we have houses to serve that. Yep. So it's disturbing to me to meet somebody at a business function that is closing 20 single family houses a month and putting them into their pool of assets that they're leasing back out. And that's one more house that can't be purchased by you or me.
And it's interesting, because I think that when they all started buying them in 2008, we thought, like, oh, great, this will help solve the problem. We thought they would all come back on the market. Well, they haven't. They're still, they're still renting them. They're still holding. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, they're and who knows when they start releasing them, what will be the trigger, right? And what will be the impact on the market? It could. Some people, think it could cause prices to drop. You know, my experience in the time I've been doing this is that when we have a recession, things slow down. Values stop going up as rapidly as they were. The whole supply thing is sort of set to the side for a little while we heal whatever the problem is. And then, but they don't go backwards in value.
Right.
Unless you're in a population area in the Northeast somewhere where literally people are leaving town to come to the South or some other place. And actually, one of the things that I used to track was migration patterns. So I was seeing actually where the people were coming from, in what states and what cities they were going to, and then trying to figure out how to tap into that market.
Right.
But so unless you're in one of those, Rust Belt states where people are just simply leaving, that's when values start going down. But when you're in any Southeast market in the United States, any healthy market anywhere, values may stop going up. They just sort of, they flatten out. And then as soon as things get healthy again, boom, they're on the rise again. So that's why, back when we had 18% interest rates, I could make a justification for getting into the real estate, refinancing it later, but putting your stake in the ground sooner than later, because it's always paid off.
Yeah. Well, Terry, I could talk to you all day, but we are running out of time for today. So any closing thoughts, anything you want to leave our listeners with before we go?
No, I've been very fortunate to be involved in this industry with the people I've been able to work with over the years, both locally and nationally. I'm still trying to play hard, still do handstands, still ride a unicycle, still like to take the Boy Scouts out on multi-day high adventure trips. That's the kind of stuff that I want to do right now, whereas my wife is getting ready to do another project. But we met on the gymnastic team. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's live full and play. It's funny. We play honestly, play well. One of the things I loved about Johnny Isaacson is, before we actually sat down and wrote a highly defined policies procedure manuals, which at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, there was one rule that covered it all: do the right thing.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I'd say, Johnny, I got a situation here I'm about to rule on. It's going to cost the company some money. He says, whatever you say is okay with me, Terry. I know you'll do the right thing. And sometimes that was writing a big check to the buyer or the seller because our agent made a mistake. And, do the right thing, have fun, make a lot of money. It's a great business to be in.
I love that. Work hard, play hard, do the right thing. And it's so true. If you take care of people, it comes back to you over time.
It really does, over and over and over.
Yeah. Words to live by. Well, thank you so much for your time. For our listeners that might want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you or get in touch with Morrison Fellows?
We have a website. It's www.morrisandfellows.com. If you Google that, you come up with all sorts of information on the company, and I think there's contact information there. My wife is the driver of the mixed use commercial real estate development business. I am purely an asset. I'm a financial partner. If it goes well, I benefit. If it doesn't go well, I don't benefit. We're in it together, have been for years, and I keep encouraging her to do it as long as she's having fun. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to slip out and do a guy's trip somewhere while she's running numbers with partners. So we do have a website, and we still live and work in Sandy Springs, are heavily involved in community service and parks, trails, and green space, and did the same thing in Woodstock, and we're busy doing that in Sandy Springs, Greater Sandy Springs right now.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for all of that. And I've decided I'm going to change your title from legend and icon to pioneer, because clearly you pioneered a lot of methods and systems and things that, weren't in place before, for Northside Realty, and then for, other organizations around the country who saw what you were doing and followed along. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I was very fortunate to have such a great palette to start working on.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps this week's all about real estate edition with our focus on our legends of real estate today. I'd like to thank Terry Morris with Morris & Fellows Real Estate for taking the time to share with us today and share his story, all the fun stuff going back to David Chatham and Johnny Isaacson. So thank you so much for sharing today, Terry.
Thank you, Carol.
On behalf of our show sponsor, New American Funding, I'm your host, Carol Morgan, and I'd just like to say thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's show, please go to iTunes and give us a positive rating and review. If you'd like to follow along with more of these conversations, you can download our podcast from Spotify, Stitcher, or iTunes. And with that, I'll just say thank you very much. I look forward to seeing everyone right here again for our next show.
Atlanta Real Estate Forum Radio is made possible by Denim Marketing, the publisher of Atlanta Real Estate Forum, Atlanta's favorite source for real estate and home building news. Denim Marketing is a comfortable fit, like your favorite pair of jeans. Denim Marketing tailors marketing strategies to meet your specific needs and niche. Try them on for size. They will work to create a perfect fit for your company's marketing program. Call them at 770-383-3360 or send an email to info@denimmarketing.com. For more information on Atlanta Real Estate Forum Radio or to inquire about being a guest, contact info@atlantarealestateforum.com. Check out the radio show by visiting atlantarealestateforum.com or by listening to the show on your favorite podcast app. And if you enjoyed today's broadcast, we'd sure appreciate a rating and review on iTunes. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Atlanta Real Estate Forum Radio.